Hi and welcome to Magic Behind the Magic. I'm Steve Wickenton and today we are talking about scripts. Magicians and scripts. Some love them, some hate them, and some don't even think about them. But I guarantee you one thing. If your performance uses vocal communication in some form and at some stage, then you are using a script of some sort. It may not be the traditional script in that it's written down, but if you are repeating the same words in your show, or at least in a part of your routine every time, then it is doing the same job and having the same effect as a script. Now, I personally recommend that you always use a script. And just recently, while suffering from varying degrees of jet lag, I was so glad that I do use scripts. Let's go with 4 reasons why it's worthwhile having a script. Number 1, language is a very finicky thing, and to get a certain response or a certain reaction, things need to be said a certain way. Say it slightly different and it can be taken completely the wrong way. My favorite example of this comes from a cartoon strip that I loved when I was a kid. Look, quick! Sand. Look. Quicksand? So by having a script means that you can always tweak and update it and change it around to make sure that what you want to be understood is correctly understood by your audience. A great example of this was when I began introducing my puppet into my show, and I had to change the script 3 times to get it right. I started by asking, who would like to meet someone who's very silly? Now this was almost meant as a rhetorical kind of question, but immediately kids started putting up their hands expecting that they might get picked out of the audience to come up and meet someone silly. What I really wanted was the kids to say, yeah, we want to meet someone silly, but as a group. So I changed my script to say, would you all like to meet someone who's very silly? This got them all shouting yes, and a few saying no. It wasn't exactly what I wanted, so I tweaked it a little further. Now I say, if you want to meet someone silly, say yeah. Now this gives me the right response and the opportunity to build their expectation by asking how much they want to meet him and explaining how silly he really is. So that is number 1 reason why you need to have a script. Let's call that clear communication. Now, number 2 is it helps keep your timings right. This is actually a 2-fold reason. There are 2 ways it keeps your timings. It keeps your comedic timing, and it also keeps the timing of your show all the way through on track. Comedy and timing go hand in hand, and if you get one of them slightly off, it doesn't really work as well as it could. This is why having a script keeps you on track and makes sure that those pauses and those right responses are coming through to make the comedy work. And of course, by having a script means that your show is always going to be roughly the same length. This is important because if you say that your show goes for 1 hour, you don't want to finish it 45 minutes in. And you don't want it to go 15 minutes over either. So after my recent trip to the US, I came home and jumped straight back into performing. The first show I did seemed to go so fast that when I finished it, I honestly thought that I had done it in half the normal time. But a quick glance at a clock and I discovered that it had taken exactly as long as it should. So while the jet lag had made it feel a lot faster, the script had actually kept me on time. If I hadn't been using a script, I would have gone at least twice as long because my mind just did not have any real accurate way of measuring time at that stage. Which leads me straight into number 3. Number 3 is about keeping on track. Without a script and having children as my main audience, I know that I would get sidetracked at every turn. I would go off on some unneeded tangent and probably confuse myself and my audience, something you don't want to do. But by having a script means that I stay on subject, and if I do wander a little bit, I can easily come back and take up where I left off. And the number 4 reason why I recommend that you use a script is memory. Memorize a script, perform it often, and your show will always be right. This rang true for me last weekend while I was still suffering from just a little bit of jet lag and doing my first birthday party show back in Melbourne. As I finished one routine, my brain blanked out and I could not think what was next. But the weird thing was I didn't stop talking and I continued with the script. I honestly had a moment where I just could not think, but I kept going because I knew the script and I could actually do it without thinking. In that split second, I thought to myself, don't think about it, just follow your mouth. And by doing that, I knew what the next part or the next routine was. Now, if you have a script and you know it really well, that doesn't mean that you don't need to think about your show. But it does mean that when it's needed, it can help keep you on track. In fact, what it really means is that when you have a script and a great script, your show is always going to come across professional. It means it's always on time, on subject, and continuous entertainment with no obvious hiccups. And of course, that means more bookings. So the 4 reasons to use a script are: number 1, communicating clearly. Say what you mean to say. Number 2 is timing. Keep your timing right during and all the way through to the very end of your show. Number 3, stay on track and on subject. If you do wander, you can get back easily by picking up a script where you left off. And of course, number 4, if you remember your script perfectly, then you will always remember all of your show. So that's about it, folks, except I do have one little thing to add, because some people don't like scripts because they think that they are restricting. Just because you have a script that's working really, really well doesn't mean that you cannot experiment with it and adjust it bit by bit. Just like anything in this business, always be looking for a way to improve. Thanks again for watching, and I hope you got something out of this one. Remember to like and subscribe, and of course, most importantly, leave your comments and views below. We all have a story to tell and we can all learn from each other. So share your experiences and things and thoughts in the comments below. Get scripting, and as always, keep growing. Don't forget, if you haven't subscribed to the newsletter, you can do that there and you get your free 7-point checklist. Over there, that's for subscribing to the YouTube channel, and down there, that's a video. If you haven't seen that video, you might want to check that one out. So it goes like this: subscribe to the newsletter, subscribe to YouTube, and watch the video.